All right, hello everyone. So selenium, Brazil nuts, you don't want to count on having selenium in it, because if there's no selenium in the soil, then there's no selenium in the Brazil nut tree. The Brazil nut tree does not require selenium, it just accumulates it if it is in the soil. So you don't want to use Brazil nuts in order to get selenium, because then we start talking about the other 60 essential minerals, the other 59 essential minerals, and there's probably more than that, but we just shorthand it by saying the 60 essential minerals. If you start trying to find one food for each different mineral, you're going to be trying to eat 60 different foods every day, and it doesn't work that way. So selenium, I would say the best food to actually get selenium in is organs, but organs are high phosphorus. This can get complicated real quick. Organs are high phosphorus, so the more organs you eat, the more calcium you need. So now you're creating a calcium deficiency. Everyone's already calcium deficient to begin with, but then you start eating organs and you increase the deficiency. And I'm not saying that organs are bad, and I'm not saying that Brazil nuts are bad. I'm just saying it's a fool's errand to try and get all your essential minerals from food. You're never going to be able to do it. The longest lived people, the longest lived populations never did it that way. They have all these different habits that we go on and on about in this account. I'm not going to go into the full rant right now. They have all these different habits that put more minerals into their food. It's not the foods that they eat. The longest lived people live all over the world. They eat all kinds of different things. The Brazil nut doesn't grow up in the mountainous regions where most of the blue zones are anyways, so it's not the common factor. The factor that matters is not the foods that they eat. Just let me hammer that in. So other than that, we do recommend just covering the baseline with the 90 essential nutrients. That includes the proper dose of the calcium and all that, so that even when you eat high phosphorus foods such as organs, you can balance that with the proper calcium intake. And the baseline dose of the 90 essential nutrients is more important than boosting selenium on its own, but you can boost selenium on its own very cheaply. We have pretty high-end products, and even us, our product, it costs just like $1 a day. I think it's $28.95 right now for the selenium, the ultimate selenium. You take 3 of those a day, that's the recommended dose because there's 90 capsules in it. That gives you 300 micrograms of selenium. If you're already on our baseline program, any of them, they should have 100 micrograms in it already, at least 100 micrograms in it. So now you're at 400 micrograms for just $1 a day added onto your normal program. That's what I do. I mean, I'm not going to count on eating organs every day and eating Brazil nuts every day or whatever else. And I'm not doing the chemical analysis on those foods to find out how much selenium is in those foods. And 400 micrograms a day, that's in agreement with most of the world's experts on selenium. They recommend somewhere between 1 and 400 to be serious to cover your bases with selenium. Stones anywhere in the body are caused by calcium deficiency and or good fat deficiency, fatty nutrient deficiency. So the number one cause of the fatty nutrient deficiency is eating gluten, because that impacts the absorption of the fatty nutrients, and everyone's calcium deficient, period. Everyone's calcium deficient in this food system. You need to supplement with it, or that's going to poke its head out in one of a number of different symptoms. This is only one of them. You can get stones in the body, you can get calcium deposits in the body, you can get elevated blood calcium, you can get muscle cramps, muscle twitches, pain basically anywhere in the body, anything like that. These are all practically guaranteed if we live on the food system, and it's just a matter of time. If you eat from the grocery store, you're going to see a calcium deficiency symptom eventually, guaranteed. And there's over 200 diseases on the physician's desk reference that are directly related to calcium deficiency, and it's no surprise because us modern people, we disregarded all the things that put more calcium into the primitive person's diet. It should be quite easy to fix with kids. Kids don't weigh very much, so the supplements are all dosed based on body weight. And yeah, once that's corrected, they shouldn't be forming stones anymore. And they should also have other improvements, like their immune system would be the main thing. If they get sick regularly, cough, cold, ear infection, nosebleeds, almost anything like that, almost anything that you can think of, quite honestly, that would hit a child or an adult is going to be related to calcium deficiency, because calcium is involved in practically all of the body systems. So if you want a protocol for your kids, you can message us. We can put together a package that makes sense for them. You're going to need to tell us their body weight and if they have any other problems that we need to focus on. Normally we say message us so we can give you the questionnaire, because there's some weird things on it that could pop off. I don't expect any of those weird answers on a kid, but I've been surprised before. So definitely check with us with the questionnaire and make sure that you're getting the right advice. Well, everybody should understand that screening is not prevention. So just because you get a screen doesn't mean that you're actually doing anything to prevent the problem. In this case, we recommend being healthy all the time so that your chances of getting a cancer, which is what you'd be screening your breast for, so your chances of getting a cancer are extremely, extremely low. And all screening has some form of danger with it, unless you're just doing a self-breast exam, which is the real answer to your question here. You should do a self-breast exam periodically. You could do it very often. You could do it every month if you want, but more reasonable to do it once every 2 or 3 months. Keep a journal that's just for that. Do it at the same time. Like if you do it on the first Monday of the month, Do it at that same time at noon or whatever it is. Do a self-exam, see if anything else has changed, see if you have any lumps or anything like that. And honestly, chances are that if there is a lump, it's just caused by a bra, wearing a bra. I'm not saying that every lump is caused by wearing a bra, but I'm saying it's very, very common. Because the female breasts are basically a system of pumps. If you look at an anatomical drawing of the female breast, it's full of pumps, basically. It's full of lymph. And that lymph needs to drain, just like it needs to drain anywhere in the body. This is one of the reasons that exercise is good for us in general, or anything that moves the lymph around, lymphatic exercises. And yeah, when you're wearing a bra, especially on large-breasted women, you're creating big blockages there. So it's very possible for a lump to form there. I would say, in addition, take the radiation thing seriously. Don't ever put a phone in your bra. It's a very common habit that nobody should ever do. You should never expose your breast to extra radiation. And that's what a mammogram does too, right? We're not the only ones out there saying that mammograms are potentially responsible for a certain percentage of the breast cancers. So they're actually going in for screening, and the screening itself causes an increased risk in a cancer forming, or a tumor forming, or a cyst forming. And of course, you have the possibility that a cyst could form anytime. Anybody who's unhealthy can form a cyst. It could be on the back, it could be in the ovaries, it could be in the breast, it could be anywhere in the body. And that's caused by multiple nutrient deficiencies. It's not caused by one thing. Cysts are never caused by one thing. It's caused by multiple nutrient deficiencies. It's caused by processed food. It's caused by lack of circulation, as I already mentioned. And there's a lot of easy circulation exercises that you could do, such as even using a swing set or a trampoline. Or my two favorite machines for this is a chi machine or a shaker machine, or a rumble pad it's sometimes called. And those should be moving the fluid all throughout your body. That's when you're swinging, that whooshing feeling that you get on the way down, that's all the fluid moving around in your body. So that can stop these blockages, especially if you're not wearing a bra when you're doing it. And same thing with the trampoline. As you're just a little rebounder in your mud room, or now it's summer out in the backyard, just jumping up and down, moves the fluid all throughout the body, and it can drain away those blockages. So is it necessary for a professional to do a screening for you? In my opinion, no. Whether we're talking about a breast exam, but even more importantly, if we're talking about colorectal exams. If you didn't know, a colonoscopy can kill you because they shove a garden hose up your rump and it can puncture your intestine and you can die of belly infection, peritonitis. Prostate exams can kill you. If they puncture the prostate, it can release prostaglandin, too much prostaglandin, which can stop your heart. So I'm just saying that these screening things, they don't prevent any disease. They could be harmful, both in the case of breast exams and colorectal exams. And if they find something, now they're going to stress you out and pressure you into doing some kind of their treatments, right? Drugs, surgeries, and more tests. That's all they really have. Or radiation. Any of these things are all potentially harmful. So what is the benefit of getting them to identify a problem for you when the only possible thing they have for you is more harm? And we definitely recommend not waiting until something breaks, not waiting until there's a problem present. You want to stay on top of this, so you want to be healthy all the time. You want to be off all the processed foods as much as possible. We recommend being off all processed foods, again, as much as humanly possible, being on a baseline dose of the 90 essential nutrients. That's it. Doing lymphatic exercises, getting fresh air, and there's a long list of other more simple healthy living things, but that's most definitely what we should be doing is being healthy all the time so that we don't have one of these catastrophic problems. And then it doesn't matter if you get screening or not, because you're extremely unlikely to get any of these more serious problems. Remember, big problems like cancer, it's not caused by one thing. It's caused by a bunch of little things added up. So you can take control of all of those little things, and you don't need a professional to do a test for you. Yeah, she sent another slide that says we want to prevent surgery if possible. And yeah, definitely, we agree. Give it 90 days, give us 90 days before you do any surgery is what we say, unless it's an absolute life-saving emergency. So a cataract is never an emergency. And if it's in a kid, then that shows that there's pretty catastrophic deficiencies there. So they should actually be easy to correct. As I said earlier, with commenting on another child, children are pretty easy. You're in control of them for the most part. You can control their doses. Their doses are cheap because they're kids. They don't weigh very much. Everything is dosed based on body weight. In this case, we'd be given the 90 plus extra antioxidants, basically. You need to talk to us in the DM so we know what country you're in and how old they are and how much they weigh and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, is this an 8-year-old or is this a 1-year-old? Can they swallow capsules? That will make it a bit easier to get in higher doses of antioxidants. So just talk to us in the DM. And yes, cataracts can be reversed, whether it's a child or an adult. Yes, absolutely. There's a nutritional link between the two. The nutritional link is in the selenium family, basically. Probably selenium and its cofactors. That could be copper, that could be vitamin A, vitamin E, could be vitamin C. but it's more likely to be one of the minerals. You probably live in a place that doesn't have much selenium, which is much of the world doesn't have much selenium in it. And remember, if we're eating from the grocery store, we're eating from soils that many generations ago, they already pulled up all the minerals. They pulled up all the important minerals. That's why we need fertilizer. We need to put nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium on to force the growth, because the soils themselves are barren. Once we grow plants in the soil and we pull the plants up, those plants took the minerals with them. So here we are decades later, we're eating from very, very barren soils. This has been known for a long time. This has been known since the early 1900s that this was a massive problem. That's why they started iodine fortification back in like the 1920s or early 30s. It was the first one, but selenium's another big one. So selenium's involved in the connective tissue, so is copper, so is sulfur. Sulfur is a part of all of the connective tissue compounds that you'll see out there in the market, like collagen peptides or MSM, the S stands for sulfur, or glucosamine sulfate or chondroitin sulfate. You know, when we say to consume bone broth or any of these other supplements, we do sell those supplements, all of those. We're really actually increasing the sulfur and the sulfur compounds that are there to strengthen the connective tissue. They're part of the connective tissue. So is vitamin C. You could think of C standing for connective tissue. Lots of people talk about it directly that way, as if it's the most important factor for promoting connective tissue. But all this is part of the 90 essential nutrients. Every single one of those is part of the 90 essential nutrients. So yes, it's nutritional deficiency. It's likely that there's more than one deficiency going on, and that your siblings and you share the same eating patterns. You might not eat exactly the same thing, but if you eat from the same stores, then you're getting the same basic nutrient availability. And the connection with vitiligo is that the selenium is one of the fat-soluble nutrients. It's a fat-soluble mineral, and it's a mineral that you need to use antioxidants properly, but all the fatty nutrients are involved in your skin. So if you have a pigmentation problem, you could have a deficiency of any one of the fatty nutrients, but it's probably many of them. So that's selenium, zinc, cholesterol, the omegas, especially omega-3, vitamins D, E, A, and K, which I already mentioned are cofactors with selenium as well, especially vitamin A and E, but D as well. I mean, all of this is part of the 90 essential nutrients, right? And it's these fat groups that are causing it the most. And if we eat just like our family eats them, we're going to get the same diseases as they do and the same deficiencies as they do, basically. Now, the number one cause of the deficiency of these fatty nutrients is eating gluten. Even though we're eating on barren soils, relatively barren soils, there's still some nutrients in the food, and it's gluten that impacts the absorption of those fatty nutrients. And I've seen plenty of cases of vitiligo that were caused just by eating gluten, especially in immigrants. I'm from Canada. There's a lot of immigrants. There's a lot of people who came from India and Bangladesh and Pakistan and stuff. So they have dark skin. They come over, they start eating all the junk that we eat, especially a lot of my friends who are in the trucking business and stuff, where they're eating out all the time. They're not eating their home cooked food that their wife makes them, which is mostly just rice and beans and stuff. They're out there eating Taco Bell. You know, they're going to the coffee shop in the morning and eating donuts and all this stuff. And I'm saying within like a year, a lot of them are coming to us with patchy skin, vitiligo. They're getting white patches. This could happen with a light skinned person too who gets dark patches. It's the same thing. It's a pigmentation problem. I'm just saying I see it a lot when people come over to Canada and completely change their diet, basically. I'm not saying that the Indian diet is very good, but it is more wholesome. Even if they're eating gluten, they come over here and eat all the garbage over here, bam, they've got vitiligo within a year a lot of times. And I've also seen this reversed plenty of times. A lot of people are lucky and they catch it early. As soon as they start to have some pigmentation problems, a lot of them did find their way to us and they changed the way they eat. Whether they went completely gluten-free or not, it doesn't so much matter, because a lot of these Indian guys, they want to keep eating their chapati bread and stuff, and they can't convince their wife to do it at home and whatnot. I'm just saying, they stop eating the Taco Bell and the McDonald's and the worst of the worst, and often their pigmentation problem just goes away if it isn't full-blown already. Now, we're recommending going completely gluten-free. I'm just telling you, in the real world, a lot of people don't actually go completely gluten-free, and they're still able to reverse this problem with basic changes and basic supplementation. Hopefully they do both of those things. The more serious they take both of those pieces of advice, the more likely they are to reverse it. The next food things that we would recommend would be eating lots of eggs and bone broth. Those two things will be giving you a lot of the fatty nutrients. Even if you're eating gluten, you should be absorbing some of it. I don't like infrared saunas. I'm not going to pretend like I know that much about them, but I'm wary about any therapy that increases your EMF exposure, especially in the case of these saunas and tanning beds and stuff like that, that are basically bathing you in static electricity, dirty electricity, or extremely low frequencies. So if it's kind of unpredictable. None of them are designed to actually prevent radiation. As far as I know, none of them are designed to protect you from the radiation that the machine themselves produces. I'm just saying it's unpredictable because I don't know how sensitive you are and how big of a problem it's going to be. A lot of people do actually say that they get great benefits from infrared saunas, and a lot of people say it makes them not feel good at all. And I'm not surprised by that at all, because I wouldn't feel good sitting in a static electricity generator either. Oats are most definitely on our bad list. Oats are for goats is a phrase that I like to say. Oats are for goats. I worked in the gym for 4 years in the bodybuilding world, and yeah, a lot of my friends and myself, we ate oats too. A lot of them were resistant to this, but a lot of them listened to me eventually and gave up the oats, and they feel a lot better. Yeah, oats is one of those cheap foods that people use to bulk. This is it. I mean, look at the other foods that people use to bulk in the gym. Peanut butter, garbage. It's garbage. It's usually covered in mold, but it's cheap, right? Oats are cheap. And people are resistant to changing these habits because they're loading up on food. They're spending lots of money on food, and so they want the cheapest food possible to do the job for them. Oats will fill your belly cheaply, right? That's what I'm saying. The main benefit of oats is that it's cheap. It has nothing to do with health. It's not a health food. And if you get off of it, you will feel better most likely, and quickly. And you will likely get rid of some symptoms if you have symptoms of almost anything. I just said symptoms of almost anything might go away if you get rid of gluten. And oats is not necessarily gluten, but the compounds that are in oats are just as bad as gluten, basically. Just as harmful. And we say oats are for goats because goats have 4 stomachs. So they have this whole massive vat, basically, of bacteria and protozoa and other microorganisms that can digest that. It's basically a big fermentation vat that any 4-stomached animal walks around with. That's why they can eat grains and they're fine, because they have much more digestion capabilities. We don't have that. It damages our intestines. And yeah, if your intestines are being inflamed or damaged from wheat, barley, rye, oats, buckwheat, or even quinoa, or even some of these other more exotic grains like couscous or kasha that couscous is made from, any of these things, if you're damaging your intestine, you could be malabsorbing nutrients, and you could have any symptom that you could name that could be caused by gluten or oats. It is generally a good idea. You might not have to do it every day. Well, you don't have to do it every day, because unlike most of the nutrients where you put them in, you use them, and you got to put them back in, probiotics are colonies. So you want to start your colony foundation. A lot of us screwed this up in childhood. We got antibiotics given to us. We didn't know this stuff. We got antibiotics given to us, and we ate the standard American diet, which just doesn't promote the growth of good bacteria and all this stuff. So we had a poor foundation, colonial foundation in our colon, where the probiotics, most of them live. So you can top them up. This is one of the reasons that I really love starting people on the digestion protocol, by the way. It's by far my favorite way to start somebody, especially if it's not an emergency. I like to take that first month and fortify the guts so that they're better able to assimilate basically anything else that we throw into them, especially the B vitamins. They're able to work properly in general when you have those colonies working for you. So there already is a baseline dose in tangy tangerine. There's 1 billion microencapsulated probiotic colonies. Microencapsulated means they should be more likely to actually make it to the colon and establish themselves there. And if we're eating properly, especially if we're eating fiber, a lot of people are out here on Instagram saying, no, we don't need fiber. We agree that fiber is generally overrated, because 10 years ago people were saying that eating a high fiber diet was going to stop cancer and stuff. We're saying, yeah, it's overrated, but you still need to eat fiber in order to feed your colonies. So a lot of people are on carnivore, keto, or whatever, and they're not eating fiber at all, basically, or so little that they're giving their colon nothing to feed on. They're giving the probiotics nothing to feed on. So in those cases, you actually would need higher doses. You need to be eating fermented food all the time, basically, in order to keep your colonies healthy. But it's much easier just to have your baseline set and then eat enough fiber to feed them, and don't eat the other junk foods that mess with that environment. So if you do eat fermented foods regularly, fermented foods with probiotics in them, and I don't mean kombucha from the grocery store that has 20 grams of sugar in it or something, there's basically going to be no probiotics left in that. But if you're eating foods with real probiotics in it, you can guarantee, then you don't really need to increase your probiotics on top of the tangy tangerine. Like I said, the tangy tangerine has at least that 1 billion microencapsulated dose, billion active cultures, so that can keep you going if you're maintaining your health. It's a bit of a weird answer because I don't know who you are and I don't know what you're eating, right? If you eat badly, which we don't recommend, but if you eat badly, it's definitely a good idea to increase your doses of probiotics. We do sell many products for that. I don't want to put links in because This is not recommended. It's recommended to eat properly so that you don't need a huge dose. And there's so many different foods that you can choose, and you can find which ones you like, and you can eat them all the time and just feed your colonies that way. Well, in terms of what cancer really is, that's a hard question to answer when you haven't told me what type of cancer it is. That matters a lot. Are we talking about a brain tumor here? Are we talking about prostate cancer? Massively different things, completely different things, basically. In my book, Fake Diseases, this is the YouTube version because you can just skip to the cancer chapter. I recommend you watch the whole thing that explains all the stuff that adds up to cancer. We talked about breast cancer a little bit earlier in the story. You can check that out too. But cancer is the result of many small problems. Big problems in general are a result of many small problems. So there's many different things that you can do. Think of these small problems like legs on a table. You're not going to get cancer with one leg knocked out of the table. It's probably going to take 2, 3, or 4 legs knocked out of the table. And there might even be more legs than that. So this is why in the cancer chapter, we recommend hitting everything. We don't pick and choose, oh, your problem's in this category. No, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it, basically. But what you can do for your father, because he's not the one coming here and asking us, if he was the one asking, we could just give advice. Buy this package, get off these bad foods, watch the cancer chapter, do all the extra stuff that we recommend in there, right? There's lots of extra stuff in the cancer chapter that I talk about, things that are not nutritional, things that are not... If everybody wants the thing they just take, and they take this magic bullet thing, give me the drug, give me the supplement, give me the food that's going to cure my cancer. That's part of the solution, yes. We need to feed the body with nutrients. The rest of it is what you don't eat and what other things that you can do that don't involve you putting something into your body, right? I talk about many things like even going out in nature and do all the hippie stuff, honestly. Grounding and I'm talking about ions. I know so many cases, I've run into so many cases and heard so much feedback from people over the years of people who just they went home, they were told they were going to die and they just went home, their parents lived in the country and they kept alive, they didn't die. They just got out of their stressful environment and their EMF environment. So what you can do, since you're asking about someone else, is show them information. You can show them this story right here, start to finish, show them the whole story. Say, hey, these guys will help you out. We will. You message us, we'll give you the questionnaire, you fill it out, we'll give you our best advice to start from there. Show them my book, Fake Diseases. Show them one of Dr. Wallach's lectures. This is the best way to start, I think. If you're trying to get through to anyone, we always did this in real life. I was trained, hand someone a CD. Say, hey you, I think I know something that can help you. Listen to this. Give me your phone number. I'm going to call you on Thursday so I can come back and get that CD from you. That's how I was trained to do it. Show them a lecture. 2-hour lecture. This is my favorite one. Somebody Should Go to Jail. It's by Dr. Wallach. Dr. Wallach's better than me at giving this information, of course. He's the guru here. So this is how we would always start, with a Dr. Wallach lecture. And, hopefully they're not resistant to watching it because they have cancer. You don't have 2 hours to learn about what might help you. Offer to sit down and watch it with them if you can. And I know that people are often very difficult to deal with when they're in such a stressful situation. Cancer is obviously among the most stressful things that anyone can ever go through, so they're usually not in the right frame of mind. They've got conflicting information from everywhere. Doctors telling them to do this, families telling them to do this, and now you come along and say, hey, there's a natural way. Just understand there might be some hostility here. So hopefully he does have 2 hours to watch it, but if he's hostile to it, I'd bug him. I'd say, look, Dad, just watch the first 15 minutes. If this isn't compelling in the first 15 minutes, turn it off. But the best chance that you have with your father is to get the information into him so he can have confidence, because I can tell you what to do, what I think you should do, no problem. That's easy. I can do that in my sleep. But if he's not willing, if he's not confident, if he doesn't trust us, if he's not excited about this, if he doesn't actually believe that he can heal, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. He's not going to quit gluten unless he has a good reason to. He needs to trust us before he's going to take any of our advice. Okay, 3 different conversations here. Start with selenium. We do recommend staying on a baseline dose of selenium. It's just not a part of the message we push for the average person, because we're pushing the average person to be on a baseline dose of the 90 essential nutrients. I prefer to be on extra selenium. I just understand there's budget constraints, and what is more important is being on the baseline dose of the 90 at that minimum of 100 micrograms of selenium that comes in most of our basic packages. That is the most important thing. If you're serious about preventing disease and functioning optimally, selenium is definitely at the top of the list of things that you want to consider boosting, especially if you're an athlete, right? It's way before the pandemic. Wallach and I, everyone, we were all going on about cardiomyopathy, heart attack in athletes. One of the big groups. Why? Because they deplete more nutrients when they sweat more. So cardiomyopathy, heart attack is a selenium deficiency. So that's among the groups that should really, really strongly consider being on an increased dose of selenium forever. And definitely if you have a serious illness, like we were just talking about cancer there, selenium is definitely in the recommendation when you have a serious problem. We have more leverage now, right? The average person just coming in and wanting to do better, wanting to lose some weight, wanting to get rid of, some more minor complaint. We don't need to emphasize the extra selenium. We can get excited about a lot of nutrients and you can find yourself on 10 products. It's not very cost effective and it scares a lot of people away. I would rather a more moderate approach that people can do long term, that people can do every single month, and they will get fantastic benefits that way. That's just the way I operate. I came up in blue collar towns, lower class towns, so I always tried to find the most moderate, the most cost effective ways to get people the most possible benefits, right? I could give you 20 different products and yeah, that would technically give you the most comprehensive, that would give you the best benefits, but can you afford to stay on that for longer than a few months? A lot of people can't. And I myself didn't start making real money until just a few years ago. Basically, I was still struggling up until just a few years ago. So I would be covering my baseline 90 essential nutrients. And often I would just be buying a selenium once every 3-4 months, taking one extra capsule per day because it comes with 90 capsules in it, the ultimate selenium there. So I take one a day, and so I'm doubling my selenium, right? You're on the baseline dose that tends to have the 100 micrograms in it, whatever package you're on. Tangy Tangerine has the 100 micrograms in it, so now I'm doubling it by taking one capsule a day, but I'm stretching the bottle out for 3 months or even more because I was poor, right? Now I can afford it. Now I can take the extra selenium, I can take the extra Ocean's Gold, I can take the extra Sweeties, and I can afford the extras, right? Not everyone can afford the extras. So it's not something that we push because getting the baseline dose of the 90 fixes most problems for most people, especially if they can stay on it long term. They can completely transform themselves without the extras if they stay consistent. Zinc, usually the zinc deficiency can be corrected in about a month. A little bit more than a month, more or less, basically. So if you come with white spots on your fingernails, that's a sign of zinc deficiency. Usually those people have some sort of an immune problem as well because zinc is so crucial to the immune system. Earlier we were talking about vitiligo, and I mentioned zinc is part of that fatty nutrient group. So if you have an obvious fatty nutrient deficiency or an obvious zinc deficiency or an obvious immune deficiency, boosting zinc is super smart. But you don't need to stay on it long term. You just need to correct the deficiency. I think the answer is because when you have an immune problem, your body uses zinc rapidly. So it uses whatever stores that you have of it because it's stored in fat. Fat soluble nutrients are stored in fats in your body. So yeah, when you're sick, you deplete your zinc. This is why a lot of people lost their smell and their taste after they got the 20/20 thing, right? People came in and say, hey, I got sick and now I don't have smell and taste. Well, that's a zinc deficiency. That's because your body depleted zinc trying to deal with the infection. Now, vitamin C, if we're talking about mega doses, this is something I've only recently been learning about, and a lot of you guys have been asking me questions since I posted that review of the vitamin C story on my personal account. And I talked to Dr. Wallach about it, and I talked to a few other people who know quite a lot about it, and my current opinion on the mega doses of the vitamin C is basically the same as zinc. If you're sick, if you're dealing with a serious problem, then it's worth increasing the vitamin C. I just increased my vitamin C by a scoop of 1,000 milligrams. Yeah, so 1 gram. I've just increased it by 1 gram. Even though there's more than a gram in our regular Tangy Tangerine, and I take that every day, I basically just doubled my vitamin C, going to see what happens. I don't think I need a mega dose right now because Dr. Wallach and other people who know what they're talking about warn me against depleting other nutrients, especially copper, and especially if you're doing it to bowel tolerance, which is what a lot of the mega dose people are promoting. And I am going to record a deep dive on that vitamin C book on my podcast, which is still off of Spotify right now. Still don't know if it's going to be up, but I have been building the archive, and I just posted a vitamin D deep dive on my archive. You can check that out. You can download it there conveniently as well. I'm going to record a vitamin C one, and this is the gist of what I'm saying here. If you use vitamin C to bowel tolerance like they're recommending in the book and like Linus Pauling recommended and lots of other people are recommending, you're going to be depleting a lot of other nutrients because anytime you have diarrhea, that's what it means to do it to bowel tolerance. You take a dose until you have diarrhea. That is going to be depleting tons of nutrients. Anytime you have diarrhea, you deplete nutrients. That's why people die of dehydration from having chronic diarrhea or any like parasite that causes diarrhea or something like that. They could die of dehydration, which is essentially nutrient deficiency. It's water-soluble nutrient deficiency, but you're losing tons of nutrients if you're having diarrhea, basically. So Dr. Wallach points out that most of the vitamin C data is being collected without the rest of the 90 essential nutrients. So the benefit from vitamin C alone is incredible, but we're much more confident in using all 90 essential nutrients and saying that when we're using all 90, we don't need to mega dose C. Even though even Dr. Wallach agreed, yeah, if somebody's really sick, it makes sense to increase the vitamin C. We sell a vitamin C product too. I don't even have it on my website because I didn't know about this mega dosing thing before. I honestly thought the 1200 micrograms in Tangy Tangerine was enough. I questioned this myself. Why do we have a vitamin C product if we get enough in Tangy Tangerine? What sense does that make? But vitamin C bulk ascorbic acid is very, very cheap. So yeah, if you're extremely sick, it's very easy to add in an extra gram, 2 gram, 3 gram. I wouldn't do it forever because you're going to be depleting other nutrients, but you can support your body extra right now. Same person asking here, and I'm sure she knows the gist of the message. I recognize her account. She's been asking many questions for many months, maybe even longer than months, maybe a year. So you know the gist. This is basically a fatty nutrient deficiency. We're not just going to give you the fatty nutrients. We're going to give you all 90 essential nutrients because that's what you need to have a healthy nervous system. And that's what this is. It's a nervous system problem. We could go as far as the brain and heart pack. I'm putting it in here just so you can take a look at it. I definitely would want anyone who has any serious problem or any minor problem, we invite you to message us so we can give you the questionnaire so we can look over your answers and see what might be best for you. There's a lot of questions that could possibly be bad here. There could be some red flags here on someone who has epilepsy. They could have something on that questionnaire that really changes our advice. But in general, we're just going to use proper, appropriate doses of the 90 essential nutrients with focus on the brain and heart nutrients, basically the nervous system nutrients. We've already talked about selenium. That's one of the key nutrients here. And of course, anytime we are talking about a fatty nutrient deficiency, we have to come in here and say that there's some foods that can cause malabsorption of these nutrients. The number one cause of a fatty nutrient deficiency, if you're not just outright avoiding fatty nutrients, which doctors will tell you, this is another problem with people with epilepsy. You have this diagnosis already, so I already know you dealt with doctors. Doctors will tell you to avoid salt, avoid fat, cholesterol, saturated fat. They'll tell you to take drugs. All these problems make these deficiencies worse. So if you're avoiding fat, that's, of course, you're going to be fatty nutrient deficient. But if you eat gluten, wheat, barley, rye, oats, quinoa, and buckwheat, we put all those on the list of problematic grains, even though they don't all technically have gluten. Wheat, barley, rye, oats, quinoa, and buckwheat. She knows this. You can message us. Anybody who messages us, we're going to give you the food list anyways. Those foods cause the malabsorption of these fatty nutrients. So you want to eat fat, you want to eat eggs. We're going to recommend eating lots of eggs, taking a baseline of the 90 essential nutrients, and being off of the bad foods. And when we say the bad foods, again, anyone can message us for this list, and anyone who gets a protocol from us, you're going to get a list of the bad foods. I often leave out of the conversation the other ones because gluten is my priority. Getting people off of those grains, that is my priority. But it is definitely worth mentioning that the other bad foods on the list, especially the oils, the deep fried food, processed meat, well done red meat, and any burned animal fats, all of that directly damage the nervous system. So we're talking about a nervous system problem here. You want to get off the foods that damage the nervous system. First of all, the glutens, the grains, they prevent the absorption of the fatty nutrients that your nervous system is largely made of. And then the other foods that are most common in our processed diet, basically, are the oils. Every piece of processed food that you're going to find, almost all of them have oils in them. Those are oxidized oils. Those oils damage the tissues in the body, damage the nervous system. Same with all the other bad foods on our list. That's why they're on the list. Long-term damage to the nervous system and to the whole body. I really don't understand this question. It would make more sense if you were asking me about a water filter, but then I would say the brand doesn't matter that much. I stand by reverse osmosis that's remineralized properly with an organic remineralizer, but brand of water, what are you talking about? Why are you buying water? Brands should not control water. I don't buy water from a brand. What are we talking about here? Water bottles? You shouldn't be consuming water bottles unless it's an emergency. Guys, even if I was poor, and I couldn't afford and I've been so poor I couldn't afford a water filter. I know you think of water filter as a luxury, but I don't. I was in the water filter business. If you don't have a filter, you are the filter. So even if you're poor, you want a water filter. Anyways, even when I was too poor to afford one, I would use a coffee filter, by the way, a coffee maker, a drip coffee maker, because it boils it up onto that plate. It's basically kind of distilled water. This is the poor man's water filter. Use a coffee maker with no coffee in it. It's a poor man's water filter. Yeah, as I said, I've been asking people who know more than me about vitamin C since I read that book, the vitamin C story. And I haven't gotten a concrete brand here, even though we sell vitamin C, like I said. Yeah, I do think it's best to buy it raw ascorbic acid, and I haven't found much information on what's better than what. I would just try and get it. It's not made in China. I know he's in Australia, so look for one that's made in Australia or made in America or made in Europe, just not made in a dodgy country. That's your main thing, because it's just contaminants that you're worried about at that point. But raw ascorbic acid is cheap to make. Lots of companies make it. You can buy it at any health food store. I just bought a pound of it for $20, and I know I could get it a lot cheaper than that actually if I bought more than that. I just bought enough for me to experiment with myself. But yes, I would get the powder, and I would just get it that's not made in China or any other dodgy country. Sea moss has excellent marketing, but it's kind of a scam, guys. We use humic shale. Humic shale is ancient sea moss. It's sea moss that lived in an ancient sea, and it's been desiccated naturally. It's been dried out naturally, and it's sitting there for, I don't know, thousands of years. Some people say it's been there for millions of years. I don't know. I don't care either. Point is, to make our 1 month product, the plain plant-derived minerals here, one bottle that's designed for 100 pounds of body weight, and it only costs, I'm selling it for $21 there, I think, and it's $23 actually online, like on the wholesale, it's $23.95, I think. Great deal for this one bottle. This one bottle takes 78 pounds of the desiccated ancient sea moss. 78 pounds to make this one bottle. That 78 pounds took over 1,000 pounds of original plant material. When this sea moss was actually sea moss, it took over 1,000 pounds to be compressed down to the 78 pounds to make the 1 month product. And we use that stuff, that plant-derived mineral complex from the humic shale, we use it in practically all of our other products. That's the magic ingredient. That's the secret ingredient that we have. And it's the potency that makes it the secret weapon that it is. So when you compare this to your other sea moss products, there just really is no comparison. Our product is the most concentrated product on earth that I'm aware of. I say this all the time. No one's ever come in here and corrected me. No one's ever come and said, hey, there's a product that's got even more nutrients and more minerals in it. Nope, no one's ever said that. And actually, if you made it stronger than that product, it would basically burn people. It's so astringent that Dr. Wallach says it shrink wraps your lips around your face. Even though what we have here, it's diluted just a little bit to the human tolerance level. And even that, we call it mineral whiskey. It's extremely strong. You can feel how much minerals are in it by how strong it is, by how astringent it is actually. I talked a little bit about cysts earlier in the story when we were talking about breast cancer, so you should go back and check that out and watch this with her, because you need to know it's not caused by one thing. And you use the word cure, so I have to come in here and say, guys, I'm not allowed to treat or cure anything. I explained all of this at length in my book, Fake Diseases. I strongly recommend checking out Fake Diseases to understand why it doesn't even make sense to think about cures and treatments. Treatments are what doctors do. The reason you're here is because treatments don't work very well. That's why we're in business. That's why the alternative health business has been growing, and the regular health business people have been walking away from it because treatments suck, basically. And you're looking for a cure, but that's not correct. The cyst is caused by a process in the body. It's a verb. It's not a thing that lives inside of you. It's being caused by nutrient deficiencies, by processed foods, probably by a blood sugar problem, probably by a circulation problem. It's a combination of several different problems. So similar to what I said earlier about the guy who's asking about his father who has cancer, since you're asking about someone else, you need to get someone else this information. It sounds like you trust us, so you're willing to ask us. Is she willing to ask us? Does she believe in what we do here? Does she know that she can heal herself without drugs and stuff? Is she willing to make changes, right? Because you're asking, I mean, we could give you the answer, but she's probably not going to take it unless she actually believes in what we're doing here. So you could show her this whole story. I think this story was a pretty good one today. Maybe it'll give her some trust and some confidence in what we do. If not, I usually start with a Dr. Wallach lecture. Hey, sister, watch this. I think it can help you. Even if he doesn't address cysts specifically in the video, he talks about what we do. And again, I'm telling you right here, and you can show her this right here, it's going to be caused by multiple things. So you're going to need to make multiple changes. There is no one product that is going to get rid of your cyst. There's no one diet change that will probably get rid of your cyst. And let me correct myself just a little bit. It is actually possible that if she just goes gluten-free, if she just puts all her effort into being 100% gluten-free and being serious about that, it might go away. I don't know where the cyst is. Is it on the back? Is it on the breast? Is it on the ovaries? Very unlikely that you have only one cyst, right? And so it's probably caused by multiple things, and it probably is caused by a blood sugar problem as well in there, which is nutrient deficiency at root. But if there's a shot of any one thing working, it's going to be going gluten-free. But even then, I don't have that much confidence. You want to make more changes than that. Get off the gluten, get on a baseline dose of the 90 essential nutrients, eat some of the right foods, especially the eggs and the bone broth to give you some mega nutrients in there. And Yeah, we're going to hope that that's enough to correct the blood sugar problem. Now, and that's what most likely it is, a blood sugar problem. If you message us, if she's willing, we'll give you the questionnaire and we'll look it over. Honestly, I'll bet there's some other problems here. Maybe some female problems, heavy or painful menstruation, or acne, or there's got to be some other problem that we can connect to the same nutrient deficiencies. This is actually an under-functioning liver. And I know this guy is a distributor. Actually, I think he just signed up as a distributor, but he's been aware of this message for a while. I don't know if he's on the full program, and I don't know if he's asking about himself. If you're asking about yourself, I would say the first thing to add is the ultimate selenium, but I also don't think he's on a baseline dose of the 90 essential nutrients. I think he's just on a couple of products here and there. So just like I said earlier when talking about boosting selenium, it is most important to me to get on that baseline dose of the 90, because selenium, it is massively important for the liver, for sure. But we don't know what other nutrient deficiencies there are. So if you're asking about someone else who's, has a liver problem here, we're probably going to recommend the Brain and Heart Pack, which is available in the UK, which I believe he's in the UK, top of my head. So talk to us. Are you talking about yourself? Are you talking about somebody else? We can help you make the choice on what you want to add, basically. Well, this is very easy. You make bread without gluten flour. That's it. We do have a cookbook, by the way. I'll be posting that at the end here, but every link that I posted to noticebooks.org will take you to my website. You can see our cookbook on it. We recently updated it. We're very, very proud of it. It's got several bread recipes in it, but this one is my personal favorite. It's so simple that I can make it. You do need a tabletop mixer, but if you love bread, get a tabletop mixer, because there's no good bread in the grocery store, period. Even in the health food stores and whatnot, healthy section of your grocery store, look at the labels, they all got junk in them. You can make your own bread, no problem, and you can make it even healthier by adding spices and stuff into it. Old breads would not just be flour, sugar, and egg, they would have spices in it. They would have wood ash in it, bone meal, fruits, vegetables, meat, believe it or not. They'd have all kinds of other things to make it even healthier. And bread is actually one of the lowest sugar things that you can bake. And I was really, really hard on bread for a lot of years. If you asked me this 2 years ago, I probably would have said, you don't need bread at all. Just get rid of bread. Anything that you can put in a sandwich, you can put in a bowl. You can get a burrito bowl, or that's what you're really paying for, the stuff that's inside the sandwich. I was really harsh on bread. But since I've learned to bake and make my own bread, and since I've compared that to all the other treats that are available, like I said, bread is pretty much the lowest sugar thing that you can actually bake. Any cookies, you try to do these sugar-free keto cookies, they're gross. They might look like a cookie, but they're not a cookie. So a bread, you can still make bread gluten-free, no problem. And I enjoy making it, and I enjoy that it's actually low sugar. Now this recipe here, I'm probably gonna make even another video with myself doing it, because I like to use butter, and I actually like to cook it down at 300 Fahrenheit instead of 350, because sugar burns at 350. We do explain this in our cookbook as well, that you can actually bake at lower temperature. We've been experimenting with this for a couple of years now. It is quite easy. I'm always surprised that hardly anyone actually asks this question. Most of you know that I grew up in pain. I was born with my hips dislocated, wrapped around my head. It's called dysplasia. And I had childhood arthritis and basically stiff man syndrome, like Celine Dion, everyone's talking about now, and Tourette's, twitches, and all this different types of pain. But all of that was somewhat manageable. You can learn to live with general pain and general stiffness and twitches and stuff, but it was shin splints that were the bane of my existence, honestly. Shin splints were so painful, and just walking home from school and stuff, it always bothered me. And then actually when I moved to Australia, I have a point here. When I moved to Australia, they got so much worse. It's like I couldn't walk anywhere. I couldn't take a few steps without having shin splints. Well, in general, my pains were all relieved with the basic program that we have, the 90 essential nutrients, with just enough of the bone formula, the bone and joint formula. It eradicated 99.9% of my pain basically overnight, in less than a week. And the reason I think it got so much worse in Australia was because of selenium deficiency. I didn't know all this stuff back then, but I remember now seeing all the people walking around hunched over, a lot of stiff man syndrome, a lot of multiple sclerosis, a lot of skin cancer, a lot of things that I would connect to selenium deficiency now. I recognized them then. And actually, if you look at the soil distribution around the world, or countries ranked on their soil quality, ranked on mineral content basically of their soils, Australia actually ranks pretty well. Relatively small population, not as intensive of agriculture. I think that's one of the reasons why they still have more minerals in their soils there, but selenium is not one of those minerals that's abundant there. So selenium deficiency is absolutely rampant in Australia. And yeah, I would connect this to many, many different problems, including shin splints, because even when I came back to Canada even before I got my full result on the Dr. Wallach program, my shin splints got a lot better just by changing countries. So the good news is that despite how painful and annoying and how much of a block of life this can be, shin splints, it's very easy to reverse this. This is not like we have to regrow a knee or anything, or a liver, we don't have to clear any arteries here. Like I said, the vast majority of my pains just disappeared in less than a week with the proper dose of the nutrients. And if you do happen to be in Australia, small proportion of you guys are in Australia, I would add the selenium to that to just make sure. And honestly, all of you Australians should know this, that selenium deficiency is absolutely rampant in that country, and so it's a very, very good idea to be on selenium as a baseline anyways, on top of the regular 90 essential nutrients. But yeah, if you want a program for you, just message us. We'll give you the questionnaire, we'll give you our best advice to start, and it's honestly probably just the basic stuff that'll get rid of it. General answer is I don't recommend enemas. I do actually recommend colon hydrotherapy in general. I made this video with a colon hydrotherapist. She walks us around her office and kind of just shows you how it works. I believe in colon hydrotherapy, but that's because it cleans the colon out. An enema only cleans the rectum out, right? There's a valve in between the rectum and the colon, and you have to go past that to truly clean out the colon. So there's a good argument to make that the waste that's sitting around trapped and the plaque and stuff that's trapped in the colon should come out, but that has nothing to do with an enema. An enema is only going to clear out the rectum, which I doubt is actually the problem here. So in general, I don't recommend enemas because I don't think they're necessary. Some people might even say they're dangerous. I'm not going to go that far. It's just not necessary. But the woman who is asking here, she's actually a weird case because she's on the program. She's on the 90 essential nutrients. She's off the bad food. She eats quite well, but she's gained a lot of weight recently. And she thinks, and I agree, that it's largely because of emotional stuff that's happened. She's been in a very stressful situation recently. And so, you could try an enema. I'm not going to say there's harm to it. It might help, but I do think her problems are largely emotional. We've spoken about this, so even just simple stuff, because she's doing the good stuff. I mean, she's already doing the big stuff. Now we go into the more simple things, but a lot of people neglect these simple things. And I even recommended literally going out in nature, going around water, going swimming, going around barefoot, getting some sun, getting exposure to good positive things, because really the emotional trauma will block your whole system up. I really don't have a flu protocol. In general, we recommend grandma's method, which is basically just increased fluids, heat, hot water, right? Steam, baths, showers, sauna, put in a bucket full of hot water and putting a towel over your head and breathing in the steam. You could put some essential oils in that bucket as well, especially the key antimicrobial ones that are very popular and very cheap, like peppermint and eucalyptus and lavender and tea tree oil. All of those are among the cheapest essential oils that you can buy. We sell essential oils, by the way. Hardly anyone buys them because I don't talk about it very often, but those are medicines. Those are powerful medicines. So when we're talking about a sickness, we are actually talking about adding in medicines here. Nutrients, we recommend the same nutrients all the time. If you're sick, you can increase the nutrients. You can increase vitamin C. You can increase zinc. Someone asked earlier, why don't you always recommend boosting those things all the time? Well, it's because it's most appropriate to boost those things when you're sick. So if you're sick, you can take some extra nutrients. You can take an extra dose of your 90. You can boost some zinc. The rest of grandma's method is just rest. Just rest, just take it easy, sleep a lot, have lots of fluids, have especially salty fluids, salty water, broth with salt in it, juices, basically any liquids. You want to increase your liquids. Foods aren't going to do that much good. There's a whole bunch of folk remedies out there people talk about with onions and garlic and stuff like that, and honey and whatnot. All of this falls into the category of grandma's remedy. There's nothing that's going to just boom eliminate your flu symptoms or your sickness or your cold. It's not going to eliminate it right away. One interesting thing that is worth commenting on, I just found it in a book called Health Secrets from Europe. I never thought about this. In my book, Fake Diseases, I talked about how we all got dengue fever in the jungle. My friends and I, the whole village, everyone got dengue. And my friend who exercised, he got over it the fastest. And I thought it might have something to do with exercise, but actually I think it's because it raised his body temperature. So he's basically just exposing himself to more heat, which your body does with fever anyways to kill pathogens. Yes, it is. If you're not born blind, and if it's not an injury here or something, yeah, you can reverse blindness, pretty much any different type of blindness, whether it's macular degeneration or glaucoma or even a detached retina. Yeah, the body can fix that. We do have this talk here. It was by an eye doctor, Dr. Pugh, because he lost a bet with Dr. Wallach. He called Dr. Wallach a liar, because he was saying he could reverse macular degeneration. He said, "You're a liar." So we bet him. He took 12 of his patients, and I believe he reversed 11 right away. And the 12th one was a bit trickier, but They reversed all the blindness and all the macular degeneration in Dr. Pugh's patients. So in return for losing the bet, Dr. Pugh recorded this talk for us called Seeing is Believing. So yeah, any eye problem, if it's gotten worse since you were a kid, if you need reading glasses now and you didn't before, and you need driving glasses now and you didn't before, you can't see at night where you did before, those are all nutrient deficiency problems, and that can be reversed, yes. Yeah, so she's been recently learning about this, and so that's probably what it is. You're just topping yourself up. And yeah, a lot of people, they come to us saying, oh, I have plenty of salt. But then I give them the salt flush. There's a salt flush video. Give them the salt flush, and they can end up drinking a whole bunch of it. So they weren't actually topped up. So yeah, if you're craving salt now and you keep eating more and you're still craving more, that is your body topping up, and that is your body getting used to it. And that should taper off. But I think most people would be very surprised on how much salt we actually need. So you need to listen to your body and feed it as much as it absolutely wants. And your salt needs will change day to day too. We're coming into summer here. So all of us in the northern hemisphere, she's in the northern hemisphere here, you're going to have increased salt demands as it gets hotter, as you sweat more, as you do more stuff outside. The more you eat, the more alcohol you drink, the more coffee you drink, all this stuff increases your salt demands, and we need a lot of salt. What do I say to them? I think that's what it means here, not what do you eat. What would you say to people who think that vegetarian and vegan diets are a fad? I would say vegan diets are definitely a fad. There's no second generation vegan colony on earth for you to point at to say that this is a long-term sustainable thing. All our sex hormones are made from cholesterol, and you need to consume at least some of that from animal products. It's not made by plants. Same with our connective tissue. We can get some of the sulfur and stuff that we need to make our connective tissue, but we also have to eat connective tissue or we are going to fall apart quite literally, because connective tissue holds us together. Vegetarianism is an ambiguous term. Vegetarianism doesn't mean anything at all. So you could say, oh, the Hunza people are vegetarian. Okay, Costa Rican people are vegetarian, whatever you want. Any of the blue zones, you can call them vegetarian if you want, because vegetarian doesn't mean anything. It just means that they eat largely vegetables. Well, so what? That's not the important factor. Since vegetarian doesn't have a definition, we could say, yeah, we agree. We're omnivores. Modern people are eating too much meat. It's thrown off their other nutrient balances. A lot of us are eating meat and only like a couple of vegetables, like potatoes or something like that. And then a lot of processed foods. I mean, that's a terrible diet. We're saying, yeah, we're omnivores, and most of the longest lived populations do eat a lot of vegetables. They do eat a lot of produce. And they don't eat a lot of food in general. That's the more important factor, I would say. They don't eat a lot of food. They don't eat tons of calories. They have high nutrient intakes because of what they put into their food, not the food themselves. They have strong communities and a stress-free life. They don't have doctors. That's an important factor with all the longest lived populations. They don't have doctors. So nothing can be killing them like that. Doctors can't be killing them. They can die from accidents or something. But anyways, yeah, sure. Vegetarian, omnivores, yeah, okay. Well, I don't know if the man who's asking if that's his actual profile picture. His profile picture is of a super jacked man. He's super ripped and super muscular. So I assume that you're eating a lot of food, number one. It's hard to get bodybuilding status without eating a lot of food. What I just said about salt a few slides back, a lot of people underestimate the amount of salt that they need. And this is especially true for people who eat real food. So if you're that shredded, I mean, you're probably eating real food, chicken breasts and broccoli and that kind of stuff, probably not eating a whole bunch of processed foods. I could be wrong. But if you're making a lot of your food, you're probably undersalting it significantly. And if you do this over the long term, it's going to be harder and harder to digest things properly. And this could be your body telling you, hey, we can't even digest this properly. So throwing it up is kind of a natural response to that. I would recommend doing the salt flush. Message us. We haven't spoken before. Message us, but we're going to recommend the salt flush and tell us how you feel. So this is another person asking, and she's actually a distributor of ours who's just started kind of taking this seriously, and I actually hope she's going to be one of the ones to help us in the DM in the short future here, because summer's actually our slow season. We've been busy this whole year, but we're coming into our slow season right now, so hopefully there's going to be a few more people helping in the DM for the next busy season. Anyways, she needs to know this, why salt is so important. What I just said for that last man, this is a big problem with people who eat real foods, especially. If you eat junk foods, you're getting salt. But if you eat real foods, most people just don't put enough salt on their food. You need salt to digest food. And the more it's cooked, the more salt you actually need to digest that. So you need salt to make stomach acid, right? It's the chloride. It's the hydrochloric acid in our stomach. It's made from the chloride and the sodium chloride. Without that, Unless you're just eating pure raw foods. There are some foods that have salt in it, like seafoods and stuff, but for most people, we need to actually consume salt. Both sodium and chloride are essential nutrients. Doctors tell us to avoid salt, but if they treated animals like that, a flock of animals, if they're chickens or horses or cows or pigs or goats, if they told the same thing to their goats and they took the salt block away, their animals will die. Basically, all animals need salt. All organisms need salt. All life needs salt. Even microbes need salt. There's no such thing as life without salt. So both sodium and chloride are both massively important. We already mentioned the role of chloride to make stomach acid. Well, you need stomach acid to digest food and to absorb other nutrients. A lot of the nutrients require that priming. They need to be bathed in that super acidic stomach acid in order to be absorbed in the intestine. It's a chemical priming that goes on. So yeah, you won't be able to digest food properly or absorb nutrients properly. And if you are missing a few of these nutrients, the ones that need to be primed with stomach acid, the whole nutritional recipe is going to fall apart and you're going to start to fall apart. And there is no civilization without salt, by the way. All civilizations were built on a floodplain, first of all, so that they could flood their fields with minerals every year, or else they would dry out and they would become barren in a few years, which is what happened to us. We just used fertilizers to try and make up for that, but we stopped the flooding of the fields with dams, and that was a massive, massive problem for our nutrient availability. But all civilizations were also built either on or near a salt mine or a salt road. Let me repeat that. All civilizations were built either on a salt deposit or on a salt road. All civilizations always had to have access to salt, or there would be no such thing as civilization, because there's no such thing as life without salt. And this is not just like Roman civilization and stuff, even though the phrase all roads lead to Rome most likely meant salt roads. This is also true in Native Americans and primitive populations as well. They cultivated salt and traded salt as well. There's a lot of people out there saying that primitive people don't consume salt. That's absolutely not true. These are all different people asking about salt here today. It's just kind of a coincidence. They're all stacked in a row. He said he's been adding, I think, half a teaspoon, he said in the next slide, to his drink, and he's been feeling great on it. Fantastic. I personally hate the taste of salt added to the supplements. To each his own. Some people find the tangy too tangy, actually. It's too tangy, they say. So salt will actually dampen that down quite a bit. I don't like adding salt to my tangy. I add salt to my water, I add it to my coffee, add it to my food significantly. I pour it all over my food, especially if it's cooked food. Again, I said earlier, the more it's cooked, the more salt you need. So I think this guy's been kind of just starting on the program. And so just like the person who was before saying they can't believe how much salt they've been craving, you're probably still in the process of topping yourself up, and it can take quite a while. That's why even the salt flush, I recommend doing it multiple times. If you're low, do it multiple times so that you can top yourself up over multiple days, because it probably won't happen all at once. And yeah, same guy asking if it's going to help with absorption. I would say yes, because several of those nutrients, as mentioned earlier, are required to be primed in the stomach acid to be absorbed properly. And actually, if anyone's getting diarrhea from the products, it can happen. You come in with messed up digestion system, you could have diarrhea if you start the products. This is why we like easing people into the doses. My point in saying this is that if diarrhea is happening, one of the recommendations I give is to add more salt to your water, or take it with food. Take some salty water first so that you can actually absorb more of it. Yeah, because your body might dump it if it's not able to use it. That might cause a flushing in the bad way, not in the good way of the salt flush. But yes, should increase absorption, yes. Well, as soon as you mention gut issues, first of all, we would get you to message us, give you our questionnaire, double check your list, make sure there's nothing weird on it. But as soon as you mention gut issues, we're most likely going to start with the digestion protocol for the first month. Just focus on the digestion protocol. It can be a lot for people to make some of those changes. I do have some products that I would recommend. I'm not going to recommend which pack until I know the case here, know what's going on. And yeah, autism's a blood sugar problem in our books, which is a mineral deficiency at root. And I do have a book all about this called Everything You Should Know About Healthy Blood Sugar, and actually I'll post that in the next slide. So yeah, I do have this book, Everything You Should Know About Healthy Blood Sugar. I'm very proud of this book. I'm told it's my personal best, and I agree. And you can see the real version on my website, and you can also go to the audiobook section and you can see the video version for free. And the reason I put in a big digestion section in there is because there is a connection. If your digestion system is not working well, then you're not going to absorb the nutrients properly. Digestion problems can cause a blood sugar problem by itself. So you might not even have the actual mineral deficiency. You might just have a blood sugar problem. So you might just have a digestion problem. Your guts could be off. Like you said, your guts are off. You got gut problems. So very, very likely I would start you on the digestion protocol. And we would reevaluate after that. We get you to stay in contact with us. We always say, keep us updated. So do that, keep us updated, let us know how you're doing so we can help you figure out what would be the month 2 step. And we do have several blood sugar packs, but they might not even be necessary. You might just need a baseline dose of the 90 after the first month. Well, I'm against all EMF as much as humanly possible. I realize that I'm sitting here on a phone speaking to you guys here, but I know that I'm also sacrificing my health by being on the phone. And I hate the phone, honestly. I hate it more every single day. I know it impacts me. I am electrosensitive. I do want to get away from it, but this lifestyle that's afforded to me by doing this on Instagram is more than I ever dreamed of. So thank all of you for the support and everything like that. And yeah, I make my living on here on this phone, and it's hard to change that over. Basically, I'm not allowed to do this on desktop. I can't record stories on desktop. Hopefully one day I will be able to do that, but smartwatch is even worse than the phone. The phone you can at least put away from you. The watch is directly into your veins. And I know Dr. Wallach wears a smartwatch, but I don't think that's healthy. He thinks he's invincible because he takes the 90 essential nutrients. I don't agree. I think if you have a smartwatch, you should smash it with a hammer on camera. You should film it so that you can post it to your story and have some other people ask you, hey, why did you do that? And I do understand the conveniences that have been afforded to us by a lot of these devices. Like I just said, I make my living on this phone. It's an incredible thing to have money made automatically. You don't have to leave the house and all that stuff. Sure, I get it, but we have to minimize our harm too. I have this video, 3 ways to protect ourselves from EMF. The first way is to distance ourselves from it, from the sources. So to put a major source of EMF on your wrist all the time, or Bluetooth headphones or anything like that, it's very, very bad. It's very silly. It's crazy. You know, you're not dumb for doing it if you didn't know, but you should know how harmful it is, and you should smash them with a hammer. That's not a joke. I'm not just trying to be entertaining here. Don't throw it in the garbage. Someone might pick it out. Don't give it to a friend. They're your friend. Why would you want to harm them? Don't give it to a thrift shop. The poor people that shop at those shops, they don't need this stuff. Smash it with a hammer so that the people on your social media can see that you're taking action to protect your own health, and they can ask you about it, and you might influence them. This is probably salt deficiency. So guys, I've been saying for the last few weeks that, hey, summer's coming up. We're going to start seeing a lot of salt deficiency here. We're going to start seeing a lot of problems of dehydration here. And actually, I have a whole chapter on dehydration in my book, Everything You Should Know About Healthy Blood Sugar. That's the YouTube version. You could skip to the dehydration chapter. Everybody in the Northern Hemisphere, you should know this. Right now, again, we're going into summer. I'm going to start getting dehydration questions every single day. This is probably it. Dehydration isn't just water. You know, we go out in the sun and we drink water. We're actually dehydrating ourselves. We need minerals as well. We need water-soluble nutrients as well, including the B vitamins and vitamin C, and all this is explained in the dehydration chapter. So this is probably it. It's probably salt deficiency. So if you message us, we'll give you the salt flush, and we'll give you the questionnaire too. We should see what else is going on and give you a proper recommendation, but it's most likely to be salt deficiency, and probably the salt flush and using enough salt in the future will actually fix it. H. pylori is a little bit of a weird one, and I'm not doing this on purpose, guys. There's just a lot of things that are coming up in a row here that are about salt. Well, if you top up on salt properly and you do the salt flush and you message us, we'll give you the salt flush. That should acidify your stomach to the point where bacteria can't live in the stomach. Salt makes stomach acid. If your stomach is properly acidified, you cannot have bacteria living in there. Dr. Wallach has also been going harder on colloidal silver in recent years, so I'm going to agree with him that that's going to be the next most important thing to put in the stomach is colloidal silver to further kill anything that's in there. And the third recommendation, like we recommend the 90 essential nutrients anyways, but like to everyone should be on the 90, but the 90 is not going to kill H. pylori. So the third main thing that we recommend on top of salt, colloidal silver, third thing is bismuth, which is the active ingredient in Pepto-Bismol, or one of the knockoff brands there, bismuth. This has been well known in the animal industry as well. I would do those 3 things at a minimum. Anyone with brain fog, it will probably go away if they go completely gluten-free, 100% gluten-free. Of course, we're going to recommend doing more, but if you go 100% gluten-free, you should be able to absorb more fatty nutrients, and the brain fog is probably caused by fatty nutrient deficiency. Brain fog could also be caused by low blood sugar. It could be caused by low thyroid. I don't want to get too complicated, but I'm saying I have very little information here. It is likely that the brain fog will go away just if they quit gluten, and you'll probably message us in 3 months or less and say, hey, I don't have brain fog anymore. You should also eat eggs or any other sources of good fats so you can have them, right? Gluten causes malabsorption of the good fats, but you also want to eat the good fats so that you can have them for your brain. Your brain is a fatty organ, basically. So that would be the number one thing. And of course, we would get you to message us, and we give you the questionnaire, and we'll double check it, and we'll give you our best advice to start. I would say they're equally important, if not mindset is more important. If your mindset sucks, or if you're stressed all the time, you're chronically stressed, you're not sleeping properly and all this stuff, you're just never going to be healthy no matter how much nutrients you take. Your mindset, again, especially if you're stressed, can stop you from absorbing nutrients, can stop you from producing the good hormones. Now you're producing the stress hormones. You can't be in fight or flight all the time. So mindset can outweigh this. My favorite book on the subject, by the way, is The Placebo Response. I do have some other books like Chasing the Cure that I would recommend as well. There's so much stuff in the faith healing category that activates your own internal healing response, your placebo response. Yeah, there's people who have healed incredible things with just their mindset alone, just prayer alone, just belief and just faith. I mean, so we know that can happen, whereas nutrients themselves, honestly, if your mindset is off, your attitude is off, and your stress is off, the nutrients probably won't work. There's tons of different herbs that are said to be helpful for cancer, but we've talked a bit about cancer already in this story, so I would go back and check that, because we're going to start with the nutritional stuff, and then we're going to move on to, I'm going to move on, if you're asking me, I'm going to move on to the brain stuff. We actually just mentioned your mentality and stuff like that, and nature, going out into nature, being barefoot, being away from the stress, being away from the EMF, all that stuff. I would do all of that before I do any herbs. There are so many different herbs and plants in general that are known to be anti-cancer, but so are the nutrients, so are the essential nutrients. So we start there. That's our foundation. Medicines come second. Always medicines come second. There's only a few circumstances where we even use medicines at all. For the most part, our programs are based in the nutrition. And once again, I do have a cancer chapter in my book, Fake Diseases. I'm putting the YouTube link up here, so you can actually just go to the cancer chapter and check that out. I do believe so, yes, and I just posted a few slides back my video, 3 ways to protect yourself from EMF. Well, if I went back and made that video now, I would add earthing to the list. I recently became very persuaded by a book called Earthing by Clinton Ober. I highly recommend it. I actually put it on my mandatory reading list. On my website here, I have a mandatory reading list. And yeah, I would highly check that out, because I'm not going to be able to explain it all here. I'm running out of slides. I'm going to have to wrap this up in a second. But yeah, more of us should ground more often and be aware of it. And that book made me aware of it on a much deeper level than I was before. And I recently bought a grounding sheet for our bed as well, and I think it's been helping quite a lot. And I do wear moccasins, by the way. I wear buffalo skin leather moccasins. One of the reasons is to connect me to the earth as much as possible. I don't like wearing shoes in general. I don't wear shoes very often, and I especially don't like rubber sole shoes. Well, you could put colloidal silver on it. That should help, but the problem is internal. It's not an external problem. It's not an infection that comes from the outside. It's a bad internal environment. So you want to get off the processed foods. And I know you're asking about someone else here. Well, this is the truth. Get off of gluten, get off of sugar at the baseline. It'll probably stop happening. If you don't quit the processed foods, it'll probably keep happening. We're going to recommend all 90 essential nutrients. We need many of them directly for our immune system, and we're going to argue that we need all of them for our immune system in some way. That's what this is. It's an immune problem. Once again, in my book, Fake Diseases, you can go to my website, you can see the real version, you can buy the real book. I appreciate the support, thank you. Or you can go to the audiobook section and see the video version for free. And you can go to the HIV, the AIDS section, actually, because this is where I talk about the HPV and HSV, which is what a lot of people will blame the cold sores on. I don't know how old your nephew is, but it's actually irrelevant. It makes sense in the chapter. Now, this is actually phrased a lot better than people normally ask this. They say, what are your top 5 foods to eat? But I like how you said, on top of the 90 essential nutrients. Because I mentioned earlier, the longest lived people, they eat all kinds of different foods. So foods is not the common factor that makes them live a long time. But if I had to choose 5 foods on top of the 90, okay. Eggs, bone broth, cruciferous vegetables as a group, green leafy vegetables as a group. You know, I'm not going to put rice on the list. You don't need rice. I could say seafood, but most of the longest lived people don't live near the sea. Could put garlic and onions on that list as well. Those are actually consumed, I think, by literally all of the longest lived populations and longest lived people, individual people, onions and garlic. There's not much to put on this list here. Notice I didn't mention any fruits. I don't think any of them are actually necessary. Yeah, that's my top list there. All right, guys, that's all I can get for today. I do appreciate you. I think it was a pretty good session today. If I missed anything, and I did, I missed many questions, anybody can DM us any questions anytime, and I will put the question sticker back up here on Sunday so we can do another Q&A here on Monday, and I hope you all have a good weekend.